The first sound he made should have been a greeting. He had practiced it for weeks, whispering it into the dim glow of his cabin while the station drifted at the edge of map space, correcting himself with every replay of the cracked audio files stored in his translator. It was supposed to be respectful, balanced, precise. Instead, what left his mouth sounded wrong. Not slightly wrong, catastrophically wrong. He knew it the moment the silence stretched. The corridor around them hummed with the low vibration of the station's energy core, panels flickering faintly as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Across from him, the alien warrior woman stood motionless. Her armor caught the light in soft, shifting patterns, adjusting subtly as if it were alive. She looked almost human at first glance. Same posture, same structure of face, but the long, elegant ears rising through her hair marked the difference with undeniable clarity. They tilted slightly, just enough to suggest that she was listening very, very carefully. He tried not to panic. He added, which he was fairly certain was not part of her language. The translator on his wrist buzzed weakly, as if even it was embarrassed. Her expression did not change immediately. That was the worst part. No anger, no confusion, just stillness. He could almost feel his carefully memorized phrases collapsing in on themselves, each one suddenly suspect. Maybe the tone had been off. Maybe he had stressed the wrong syllable. Maybe she made a sound. It started small, a sharp intake of breath, almost like surprise. Then her shoulders moved, just slightly, then again. And then she laughed, not politely, not briefly, not the kind of restrained amusement one offers to avoid offense. No, this was full, unrestrained, unstoppable laughter. It broke out of her like a wave, echoing against the metallic walls, filling the corridor with a sound so alive it almost felt out of place in the sterile environment. He blinked. "Okay," he said slowly, mostly to himself. "That's, not ideal." She tried to speak. She really did. Her mouth opened, a word forming, but the moment her eyes met his again, whatever she had intended to say collapsed into another burst of laughter. She turned slightly away, one hand bracing against the wall, as if the station's artificial gravity had suddenly become insufficient to support her. He shifted his weight awkwardly. "I practiced that," he added, as if that might somehow defend him. "A lot, actually. Like an unreasonable amount." More laughter. He glanced down at his wrist device, tapping it once, then twice. The interface flickered, scrolling through fragmented translations. One line caught his eye, and his stomach dropped. Possible meaning. "I am a misplaced farming instrument seeking emotional validation." He stared at it. "I see." He looked back up at her, who was now very clearly trying and failing to regain control. Her laughter had softened slightly, breaking into uneven bursts, but it hadn't stopped. If anything, it seemed to renew every time she glanced in his direction. "Right," he said, nodding to himself. "So not a greeting, then." The station hummed again, louder this time, as if it too found the situation mildly entertaining. He took a slow breath, straightened, and decided that if he was going to make a complete fool of himself, he might as well commit to it properly. "Okay," he said, raising a finger. "Second attempt. No farming tools this time." Her laughter hit another peak. "Encouraging," he muttered. He tried again, carefully this time, adjusting the tone, softening the edges of the sounds. The words felt strange in his mouth, like trying to shape water into something solid. He focused on her earlier pronunciation, the rhythm of it, the subtle rise and fall. This time, when he finished, she didn't laugh immediately. That alone felt like a victory. She straightened slowly, taking a breath, her composure returning in fragments. Her eyes studied him, sharp and attentive now, though a trace of amusement still lingered at the corners. Then she spoke. The sound of her voice was different from the recordings, richer, more layered. Each word seemed to carry more than one meaning, as if tone and intent were woven together into something inseparable. He didn't understand most of it, but he caught one thing, the rhythm of correction. She repeated his phrase, his second attempt, but altered it slightly, adjusting the tone with precision. Then she gestured toward him, inviting him to try again. He hesitated, then slowly he nodded. "All right," he said, "but if I accidentally propose marriage or declare war, That's on you. A pause, she blinked. Then unexpectedly a softer sound escaped her. Not quite laughter this time, but close. He took that as a good sign, and tried again. The second attempt did not result in a declaration of war, which he considered a measurable improvement. It also did not, unfortunately, result in anything resembling a proper greeting. The moment the final syllable left his mouth, the alien warrior woman tilted her head, her long ears angling slightly as if recalibrating the meaning of what she had just heard. There was a pause, short, fragile, filled with cautious hope. Then she exhaled sharply. Not laughter this time. Not yet. He leaned forward just a fraction. That sounded less agricultural, right? Her eyes narrowed, studying him, and for a brief, shining moment he believed, truly believed, that he had succeeded, that he had crossed the invisible boundary between error and understanding. Then she spoke a single word. His translator flickered. Possible meaning? You have politely challenged my footwear to a duel. He stared at the display. I don't even know what that means, he said. She tried to explain. He could see the effort in the way she shaped her words, slowing them down, separating sounds that had previously flowed together like a current. Her hands moved slightly as she spoke, fingers tracing subtle patterns in the air. Each gesture seemed deliberate, connected to the meaning in ways his training had not fully prepared him for. He attempted to follow. He really did. But halfway through her explanation, the translator gave up entirely, emitting a quiet, defeated chirp before displaying a single, unhelpful line. Translation confidence, 3%. Traitor, he muttered to the device. The warrior woman paused, watching him with an expression that balanced curiosity and barely restrained amusement. Her earlier laughter had not disappeared. It lingered, waiting, like a storm that had not yet decided whether to return. He took a breath, then raised both hands slightly. Okay, new strategy. You speak, I copy. No improvisation. Improvisation is clearly my enemy. She seemed to consider this. Then slowly she nodded. She spoke again, this time with exaggerated clarity, each syllable placed carefully, like stepping stones across an uncertain surface. The sound was softer than before, almost rhythmic, carrying a subtle cadence that suggested more than simple meaning. He repeated it, carefully, deliberately. When he finished, he looked at her, bracing himself. She did not laugh. Instead, her eyes widened slightly, not in shock, but in recognition. Then she spoke again, repeating the phrase, adjusting one note. Just one, a slight rise in tone near the end. He tried again. This time, when he finished, she exhaled in what he could only interpret as approval. Not amusement, not confusion. Something else. Something closer to satisfaction. He blinked. Did I just say something correct? She gave a small nod. He stared at her. I have peaked, he said quietly. This is it. This is the best I will ever be. A faint sound escaped her again. That almost laugh. Encouraged, he gestured toward himself. Okay. Name. This should be simple. Universal concept. Low risk. He tapped his chest. Aaron. He said it clearly, slowly. She watched him, then repeated it. Her pronunciation shifted slightly, the vowels bending in a way that made his name sound unfamiliar, yet strangely refined. Aaron, she said again, more precisely this time. He smiled despite himself. Yeah, that's me. Then she placed a hand lightly against her own chest and spoke. The word was longer, more complex. It seemed to unfold in layers, each part connected to the next in a way that felt almost musical. His translator attempted to process it. Possible meaning, she who stands between storms and does not move. He blinked. That's a name? She tilted her head, clearly noticing his confusion. He pointed to himself again. Aaron. Then to her. Storm? Standing? Person? She stared at him. A pause. Then inevitably, the laughter returned. Not as explosive as before, but warmer, softer. It rolled out of her in quiet waves, accompanied by a slight shake of her head, as if she had expected this outcome all along. He sighed, though a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I was doing so well, he said. She stepped closer then, closing the distance between them with a calm, deliberate movement. Up close, he could see the subtle details of her appearance, the faint patterns along her skin that shifted almost imperceptibly, the way her eyes reflected light differently, as if layered with something beyond simple biology. She spoke again, repeating her name, but this time she broke it apart, slowed it down, guided him through it piece by piece. He listened, then tried. The first attempt was not correct. Her ears twitched. The second attempt was better. The third, she raised a hand, gently stopping him. Then she nodded, a small, definitive motion. He exhaled. "I'll take that." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The station hummed softly around them, its systems continuing their endless, indifferent cycles. Somewhere in the distance, a faint mechanical rhythm echoed. A reminder that beyond this corridor, the vast machinery of the outpost carried on as if nothing unusual had occurred. But something had. He looked at her. Really looked this time, not as an unknown variable or a linguistic challenge, but as a person. Someone who had laughed at him for hours. Someone who was now teaching him, patiently, how to speak. "Okay," he said after a moment. "Your turn." She blinked. He gestured toward himself again, then made an exaggerated attempt at her earlier laughter, completely failing to replicate it. "If I say something wrong," he added, "you are legally required to laugh again. I think that's how this works now." She stared at him. A pause, then, slowly, that same almost laugh returned. And for the first time since he had arrived on the station, the silence between them no longer felt heavy. It felt shared. He did not expect the lessons to continue. Not because she seemed unwilling, quite the opposite, but because nothing about the station suggested time for something so unnecessary. The outpost existed on the edge of navigational charts for a reason. Ships passed through rarely, and when they did, it was for refueling, data exchange, or repairs that could not be trusted to automated systems. Every corridor carried a quiet sense of urgency, even when nothing visibly moved. And yet the next cycle, she returned. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor of the same corridor, his back against the cool metal wall, staring at his translator as if prolonged eye contact might improve its performance. It did not. "Come on," he muttered. "You translated interstellar debris field yesterday. Now you can't handle a name?" The device responded by dimming slightly as if offended. He didn't notice her at first. She approached without sound, her steps light despite the armored plating that adapted to her movement. Only when her shadow interrupted the faint glow of the panel lights did he look up. "Oh," he said, blinking. "You're back." Her ears shifted slightly, angling toward him. He pushed himself to his feet, brushing off his uniform in a gesture that had no practical effect. "Good, because I've been practicing." That was only partially true. He had attempted to practice. Most of it had been him saying the same phrase over and over, while his translator offered wildly inconsistent interpretations. He cleared his throat. Then carefully, he repeated the phrase she had taught him, the corrected greeting, the one that had not resulted in accidental challenges to footwear. This time, he got through it without hesitation. When he finished, he looked at her. She did not laugh. Instead, she gave a small nod, a very small nod. But it was enough. He pointed at her immediately. "You saw that, right? That was flawless. I deserve some kind of award." She tilted her head. He gestured vaguely at the empty corridor. "There should be a system for this. Human achieves basic competence." Big moment. A pause. Then she spoke. Her voice carried that same layered quality, but this time he caught more of it. Not exact words, but structure, familiarity. The rhythm was no longer completely foreign. His translator flickered. Partial meaning, "You improved. Slightly." He placed a hand over his chest. "Slightly? That was at least moderately impressive." Her expression shifted. Subtle, but unmistakable. "Amusement," he sighed. "I see how it is." She stepped closer, then gestured toward his wrist device. He held it out instinctively, and she studied it with quiet focus. Her fingers hovered just above the surface, not touching, as if sensing something beyond the visible interface. Then she spoke again, this time directly at the device. It reacted immediately. The screen brightened, symbols shifting rapidly, reorganizing themselves into patterns he had never seen before. The usual fragmented translations were replaced by something cleaner, more structured. He stared. What did you just do? She glanced at him. Then with deliberate clarity, she spoke a short phrase. He looked down at the translator. Translation confidence, 87%. He froze. That's illegal, he said. You can't just fix it like that. I suffered for this. She made that almost laugh again. He looked back at the device, scrolling through the updated interface. The language data had expanded. No longer broken fragments, but interconnected layers. Context markers, tonal indicators, even gesture references. You upgraded it, he said slowly. You actually upgraded it. She didn't respond verbally, but her posture made it clear that this was not something unusual for her. He looked at her, then back at the device, then back at her again. I spent 3 weeks trying to get this thing to recognize plural forms, he said. You fixed it in 10 seconds. A pause, then, carefully, he added, I'm choosing to be impressed instead of offended. Her ears shifted slightly. He smiled despite himself. Mostly impressed. Encouraged by the improved translation, he tried again. He spoke a longer sentence this time. Not just a greeting, but a simple statement. Something safe. Something he had rehearsed. When he finished, the translator processed it almost instantly. Clear meaning, I am learning your language. He looked up. She was watching him closely. Then she responded. This time he understood enough to catch the meaning without fully relying on the device. You are trying, she said. He grinned. That sounds better than misplaced farming tool. Her reaction was immediate. Laughter. Not the overwhelming kind from before, but genuine, warm, and unmistakably directed at him. He pointed at her. See? That one was intentional. I made a joke. She tilted her head, studying him again, as if reassessing something. Then she spoke, slower this time. You make errors, she said, the words slightly uneven but understandable. But not afraid. He blinked. Well, he said after a moment, I was afraid. For about 10 minutes. Then you laughed for 2 hours and it kind of reset my expectations. She seemed to process that. Then quietly she repeated one of his earlier mistakes. The original phrase. The one that had started everything. Her tone exaggerated the incorrect emphasis. He groaned immediately. No, we are not bringing that back. She did it again. More exaggerated. He covered his face with one hand. I regret everything. Her laughter returned, softer this time, but persistent. He lowered his hand, shaking his head. That's going to follow me forever, isn't it? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He sighed, then straightened slightly. All right, he said. If I'm going to be remembered as the guy who challenged your boots to a duel, I'm at least going to improve the rest of my vocabulary. He gestured toward her. Teach me something useful, he added. Something that won't accidentally start a conflict. She considered that. Then she spoke. A new word. Short. Precise. He repeated it. Carefully. She nodded. Then she pointed at him. He hesitated. Yeah, that means me, doesn't it? She nodded again. He smiled. Good, he said. I like this word. Then she pointed at herself. Spoke another word. He repeated it, this time without error. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. Then quietly he said, See? Progress. She watched him, and this time she didn't laugh. She simply nodded, and somehow that felt even more important. The corridor was no longer quiet when he arrived the next cycle. At first, he thought something was wrong. The steady hum of the station had been replaced by a sharper, uneven vibration, like distant thunder caught inside metal walls. Light panels flickered in irregular pulses, casting shifting shadows that made the narrow space feel smaller than it was. He slowed his steps. Okay, he muttered, glancing at his wrist device. Either the station is about to explode, or someone touched something they definitely shouldn't have. The translator remained silent, which he took as a bad sign. A sudden burst of sound echoed from deeper within the corridor, metal clashing against metal, followed by a brief, sharp tone that made the air itself feel tense. He hesitated for only a moment before moving forward. When he reached the junction, he stopped. She was there. The alien warrior woman stood at the center of the wider chamber beyond the corridor, her posture different from before, more focused, more precise. Her armor had shifted, its surface now emitting faint lines of light that traced along her arms and torso like controlled energy. Around her, small, hovering drones flickered in and out of visibility, projecting shifting patterns into the air. Training, or something very close to it. He leaned slightly against the wall, watching. One of the drones darted forward, projecting a sharp, angular construct. Something like a blade made entirely of light. She moved instantly, stepping aside with fluid precision, her own arm lifting in a motion so fast it blurred. The armor responded, forming a solid edge that met the projection midair. The collision produced a clean, resonant sound that vibrated through the chamber. He blinked. Right, he whispered. Definitely not a farming tool situation? She moved again, faster this time, her steps controlled, deliberate. Each motion triggered a response from the drones, their projections shifting, adapting, becoming more complex. It wasn't random. It was a system, something designed to test her, to push her limits. He took another step forward. Should I be concerned, he said carefully, or is this a normal morning exercise kind of thing? She didn't react immediately. Her focus remained on the drones, her movements uninterrupted. A projection came at her from behind. She turned without looking, intercepting it with a precise motion that suggested she had already calculated its path before it existed. Then, without breaking rhythm, she spoke. Normal. The word was clear. He nodded slowly. Good, because for a second there, I thought I missed a very important safety briefing. Another projection launched toward her, this one faster, sharper. She stepped into it instead of away, her arm moving in a controlled arc that disrupted the construct entirely. The light shattered into fragments that dissolved before hitting the ground. He winced. Yeah, I'm definitely not trying that. One of the drones shifted direction, toward him. He froze. I would like to formally opt out of whatever is about to happen. The drone paused midair, its projection flickering uncertainly, as if recalculating. The warrior woman's movement stopped instantly. She turned her head slightly, her ears angling toward the drone. Then she spoke, a short command. The drone powered down its projection immediately, drifting back into its previous position. He exhaled. Thank you. I feel like I just avoided something very educational and very painful. She stepped out of the training space, the light patterns on her armor fading as it returned to its previous state. Up close, there was no sign of strain in her expression, no indication that the rapid sequence of movements had required any effort at all. He crossed his arms. So, let me get this straight. You fight light constructs generated by floating machines before casually coming to teach me how not to insult your footwear. She looked at him. A pause, then, faintly, that almost laugh. He pointed at her. That's still funny, isn't it? She stepped closer, then gestured toward the drones. He followed her gaze. You want me to try that? He asked. Her expression didn't change. He took a step back. No, absolutely not. I just reached the level of basic greeting. I am not ready for advanced combat with glowing objects. She tilted her head slightly. Then she spoke a word. The translator processed it quickly, meaning, observe. He relaxed slightly. Oh, good. I can observe. I am excellent at observing things I don't understand. She turned back toward the drones, raising her hand. The machines responded instantly, their projections forming again, slower this time, more controlled. She moved deliberately, exaggerating her motions just enough for him to follow. Each step was precise, each action connected to the next in a way that felt almost structured, like language. He frowned slightly. Wait, he said, leaning forward. That's not just fighting. She didn't stop, but she didn't need to. He watched more carefully now, his earlier hesitation replaced by curiosity. The way she moved, the rhythm, the repetition, it wasn't random. It carried patterns, meaning. He glanced at his translator, then back at her. You're teaching, he said slowly. She finished the sequence, the drones powering down once more. Then she turned to him, a small nod. He blinked. You're teaching me your language through combat? Another nod. He stared at her. That's actually kind of brilliant. A pause, then he added, also slightly terrifying, but mostly brilliant. She stepped closer, then gestured for him to move. He hesitated. He's just observing, right? He asked. Her expression remained unchanged. He sighed. I'm going to regret this. He stepped into the training space. The drones activated again, slower than before. Controlled. Safe. Probably. He raised his hands awkwardly. Okay, he said. If I accidentally start a war, I'm blaming your teaching method. She spoke a short phrase. The translator displayed it clearly. Move. He swallowed. Right. The first projection came toward him. He flinched and completely forgot the words she had just taught him. She sighed. Not loudly, but just enough. And for some reason, that felt worse than the laughter. He did not move. Not because he chose not to, but because his brain had momentarily disconnected from the concept of survival in favor of processing the very immediate realization that a glowing construct was approaching his face at a speed that felt personally offensive. You're right, he said, a fraction too late. The projection stopped. It didn't slow down. It didn't curve away. It simply ceased to exist a few centimeters from his nose, dissolving into scattered fragments of light that flickered out before touching him. He blinked. Then he leaned back slightly. Okay, that was close enough for a life lesson. She lowered her hand. The drones dimmed their projections, hovering quietly as if waiting for further instruction. Her gaze settled on him. He straightened immediately. I was about to move. I just wanted to observe the trajectory first, for educational purposes. A pause, her ears angled slightly. He pointed at her. Don't look at me like that. You said observe. I was observing very intensely. She stepped closer, her movements calm but purposeful. Then she raised her hand and repeated the word. Move. The translator displayed it instantly. He nodded. Yes, move. I remember. I just didn't apply it in time. She gestured again, sharper this time. The drones responded. One of them shifted position, projecting a slower construct, less aggressive, more deliberate. It hovered in front of him, almost patiently. He stared at it. This one feels like it's judging me, he said. She didn't respond. He sighed. Fine, I'll move. He stepped to the side. The projection adjusted. He stepped again. It followed. He frowned. Okay, that's not fair. It's adapting. That's cheating. She spoke another word. The translator flickered, meaning, anticipate. He pointed at the display. See, that's a big word. We were doing move. That was manageable. Now we're escalating. The projection shifted again, this time angling slightly ahead of him. He hesitated. Oh, he said quietly, it's predicting. She nodded. He looked at the drone, then back at her. So if I move without thinking, it catches me. If I think too much, it also catches me. A pause, he gestured vaguely. Do you have a setting where it just gives up? Her expression did not change. He took that as a no. The projection advanced again, slow but deliberate. He moved, not perfectly, not smoothly, but enough. The construct passed just behind him, dissolving into harmless light. He froze for a moment, then looked over his shoulder. I did that, he said. She nodded, a small nod. But it was there. He straightened slightly. Okay, that felt less like imminent disaster. She spoke again. Another word. The translator processed it, meaning again. He stared at it. Of course, he said. Why wouldn't it be again? The drone repositioned. Another projection formed, this one faster. He exhaled slowly. All right, anticipate. Move. Don't embarrass yourself. A brief pause, then he added, preferably in that order. The projection came. He moved. Too early. The construct adjusted. He moved again. Too late. The projection passed through the space he had just occupied, dissolving behind him. He stumbled slightly, catching himself before losing balance. That was strategic, he said, regaining composure. I was testing its adaptability. Her ears shifted. He pointed at her. Don't question my methods. She stepped closer, then reached out, not to correct his stance directly, but to adjust his position by a fraction. A slight shift of his shoulder, a subtle repositioning of his foot. Small changes, but precise. He blinked. You're calibrating me. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. He looked down at his stance, then back at her. I feel like a very underqualified piece of equipment. A faint sound escaped her. That almost laugh again. He smiled slightly. There it is. I was wondering how long it would take. She stepped back. The drones activated again. This time, two projections formed. He stared at them. That feels excessive, she spoke, meaning focus. He nodded slowly. Right. Focus, not panic. Definitely not panic. The projections moved. One from the left, one from the front. He hesitated for half a second too long, then moved. Not perfectly, but better. He avoided the first. The second grazed past his shoulder, close enough that he felt a faint warmth against his skin. He froze. Okay, he said quietly. That one felt real. She watched him closely, then nodded. He exhaled. Good, because I would like to continue not being sliced by educational light. The drones powered down briefly. A pause settled between them. Not heavy, not tense. Just there. He looked at her, then at the space where the projections had been, then back at her again. This is how you learned, isn't it? He said. She didn't answer immediately. Then slowly she nodded. He let out a small breath. That explains a lot. A pause, then he added, also raises several concerns about your childhood. Her head tilted slightly. He smiled. I'm kidding. Mostly. She stepped closer again, her gaze steady. Then she spoke a short phrase. The translator displayed it clearly. You improve. He blinked. Then without thinking, he said, yeah. Slightly. A pause, then she repeated it. Slightly. Her tone carried the same subtle emphasis he had used before. He stared at her. You're doing that on purpose now. Her expression remained unchanged, but her ears shifted, and that was enough. He shook his head, a quiet laugh escaping him. All right, he said. Fair, I deserve that. The drones reactivated. He glanced at them, then back at her. Again? He asked. She nodded. He sighed, then straightened his stance. Okay, he said, but if I survive this, I'm officially upgrading from slightly to moderately. A pause, then, softer, he added, that's how this works. The sixth cycle began with silence. Not the ordinary silence of the station, the low hum, the distant mechanical rhythm, the faint whisper of circulating air, but something cleaner, almost intentional. When he stepped into the training chamber, the drones were already active, hovering in a precise formation that suggested they had been waiting. He stopped just inside the boundary. That feels like a trap, he said. She was already there, standing at the center, motionless, her posture perfectly aligned, as if she had not moved since the last cycle ended. The faint patterns across her armor pulsed slowly, in sync with something unseen. He glanced at the drones again. Last time it was one, he said. Then two. I'm sensing a pattern I don't appreciate. She looked at him. A pause. Then she spoke, meaning, ready. He stared at the translator, then back at her. That wasn't a question, he said. She tilted her head slightly. He exhaled. Right. Of course it wasn't. He stepped forward anyway, not because he felt ready, but because stepping back felt worse. The moment he crossed into the center, the drones shifted. 3 this time. He closed his eyes briefly. I knew it. I knew it was going to be 3. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they adjusted their positions, forming a loose triangle around him. The projections had not yet formed, but the air felt different, charged like the moment before a storm breaks. He opened one eye. I don't suppose there's a version of this where we just talk? No response. He sighed. Worth asking. The first projection appeared. Not fast, not slow, precise. It moved toward him with deliberate intent, forcing a reaction rather than allowing one. He remembered the word. Anticipate. He shifted before it reached him. The projection adjusted. He stepped again. This time he didn't wait. He moved before it could correct. The construct passed behind him, dissolving into light. He froze. That felt different, he said quietly. She nodded. The second projection activated immediately. From the side, faster. He reacted late, but not too late. He twisted just enough for it to pass by his shoulder, the faint heat brushing against him again. But this time it didn't surprise him. He exhaled. Okay, that's slightly less terrifying. A pause, then, inevitably, The third projection came from behind. He didn't see it. He didn't hear it. But something in the rhythm shifted. He turned. Not fully. Just enough. The projection grazed the edge of his sleeve, dissipating as it passed. He stumbled forward, catching himself. "I'm counting that as a success," he said quickly. "That definitely counts." She watched him. Then slowly, she stepped closer. Closer than before. He straightened instinctively, suddenly aware of the distance, or lack of it, between them. She reached out again, not to correct his stance this time, but to adjust his timing. Her hand hovered near his arm, guiding the motion before he made it, as if anticipating his reaction and reshaping it before it happened. He blinked. "You're doing it before I mess up," he said. She nodded. He glanced at the drones, then back at her. "That feels unfair. I should earn my mistakes." A faint shift in her expression, almost amusement. He smiled slightly. "I'm serious. That's part of the process." She didn't argue. Instead, she stepped back. The drones reacted immediately, 4 this time. He stared at them. "Okay, now you're just escalating for personal reasons." No response. He took a breath. "Focus," he said quietly. "Anticipate. Move. Don't think too much. Don't think too little." A pause. Then he added, "Ideally, think exactly the right amount." The projections formed, all at once. Different speeds, different angles. For a brief moment, everything slowed. Not the drones, not the projections. Him. His perception shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way that felt unnatural, but enough that he could see the pattern, the timing, the sequence. He moved. Left, forward, turn. Not perfect, not clean, but connected. One projection passed behind him. Another dissolved just before reaching his side. The third came too fast. He adjusted, barely. The fourth. He stopped, not out of hesitation, out of understanding. The projection passed through empty space. He exhaled. "Okay," he said softly. "That one was intentional." The drones powered down. Silence returned. He stood there for a moment, breathing steady, his mind still catching up to what had just happened. Then he looked at her. "Did you see that?" he asked. She nodded, a small nod. But there was something else now, not just acknowledgement, recognition. He smiled. "Moderately," he said. "I think we've reached moderately." She stepped closer again, her gaze steady. Then she spoke. Not a single word this time. A short phrase. The translator processed it slowly, meaning, "You are beginning to understand." He looked at the display, then back at her. "And that sounds important," he said. She didn't respond, but she didn't need to. He glanced at the drones, now quiet, waiting, then back at her. "So what exactly am I understanding?" he asked. A pause. Then she spoke again. No translation this time. The device flickered, uncertain. But he caught something. Not the words, the rhythm, the structure. He frowned slightly. "That wasn't about movement," he said. She tilted her head. He gestured between them. "That was something else." A longer pause, then slowly. She nodded. He stared at her. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's new." The silence settled again. But it wasn't empty. It carried something. Something he couldn't quite define yet. He exhaled. Then with a small, uncertain smile, he said, "Just to be clear, if I say something wrong now, you're still going to laugh, right?" A brief pause. Then, that almost laugh. Softer than before, but still there. And for some reason, that felt like the most reassuring thing in the entire station. The final cycle did not announce itself. There was no sudden shift in the station's rhythm, no warning from the drones, no change in the artificial light that filled the training chamber. And yet, when he stepped inside, he felt it immediately. Something had settled into place, quiet but undeniable, like the last piece of a structure clicking where it belonged. She was already there. Of course she was. He stopped a few steps away this time, not leaning on the wall, not hesitating at the boundary, just standing, balanced. "I think I'm early," he said. She shook her head, meaning, no. He nodded once. "Good. I didn't want to accidentally miss my final humiliation." A faint shift in her expression. He smiled. Kidding. Mostly. The drones hovered behind her, inactive but present, waiting. He looked at them, then back at her. How many today? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then she spoke. Meaning, no drones. He blinked. That feels suspicious. She stepped forward, closer than before, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns along her skin shifting with her breathing. The faint glow in her armor responding not to movement, but to something deeper, something internal. He straightened instinctively. Okay, he said. If this is where you reveal I've been training for something dangerous, I would like to formally object. No reaction, he exhaled. All right. Fair. She raised her hand slightly, not to command, not to correct, to speak. The words that followed were longer than anything she had said to him before. Not rushed, not simplified, full. His translator flickered, paused, then displayed. Partial meaning? Language is not sound. It is intention shaped through motion, through rhythm, through presence. He stared at it. I'm going to need a moment, he said quietly. She waited. He looked back at her. You've been teaching me all of that, he said. Not just words. She nodded. A small, steady motion. He let out a slow breath. Okay, he said. That explains why I keep accidentally proposing duels with footwear. That almost laugh. Softer now. Familiar. He smiled. Then after a moment he said, So what now? A pause. Then she spoke again. This time he didn't look at the translator. He listened. The sound still felt complex, still layered, but not distant anymore. The rhythm was there. The structure, the intention behind it. He caught enough. Not every word, but enough. Ek, you want me to speak, he said slowly. She nodded. No correction, no simplification, just expectation. He hesitated. For the first time in several cycles, he hesitated not because he was afraid of being wrong, but because he understood that this time it mattered. He took a breath, then spoke. Not the first phrase he had learned, not the corrected greeting, something new, something he built himself. The sounds were not perfect. The tones shifted unevenly in places, but the rhythm held. The intention carried through. When he finished, he didn't look at the translator. He looked at her. There was a pause, longer than before. Then, she didn't laugh. She stepped closer, very close now, and she spoke. No hesitation, no adjustment. The words flowed, clear and steady. He listened, and this time, he understood. Not every detail, not every layer, but the meaning. You are no longer noise, she said. He blinked. Hank, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, he replied. A pause, then he added, I think. Her ears shifted slightly. That almost laugh again, but quieter. He exhaled, a small, steady breath. I was terrible at this, he said. You know that, right? She nodded. He smiled. Good. Just making sure we're aligned. He glanced at the drones, still inactive. So that's it? He asked. No final test? No sudden increase to 8 glowing death machines? She shook her head, meaning, not needed. He tilted his head slightly. You trust me not to get hit anymore? A pause, then, meaning, you understand when to move. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. I think I do. Silence settled between them again, but it wasn't empty. It wasn't uncertain. It was complete. He looked at her, really looked, not as something unfamiliar, not as something to decode, just as her. What happens now, he asked. She held his gaze, then spoke. The translator flickered briefly, meaning, we continue. He blinked. That's it? She nodded. He smiled. All right, he said. I can work with that. A pause, then he added, but just to be clear, if I ever mess up again, he gestured lightly. You're still going to laugh, right? A brief silence. Then, she repeated his very first mistake. Perfectly, exaggerated, intentional. He closed his eyes immediately. No, we agreed we were moving past that. Her laughter followed, not loud, not endless, but real. He shook his head, a quiet laugh escaping him as well. Yeah, he said. That's fair. The station hummed softly around them, unchanged, indifferent to what had shifted within it. But something had. Not in the walls. Not in the systems. In him. He wasn't guessing anymore. He wasn't reacting. He was listening. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid to speak.